Alright everyone, today I'm going to be giving my 2013 NFL predictions. Now, this is something that definitely has effects in the fantasy world, because if a team does well, generally they have some good fantasy players. If you would have known the Colts would have made the playoffs last year, you probably could have figured out Reggie Wayne, Andrew Luck, T.Y. Hilton, Vic Ballard. Those guys would have done pretty well. It has, obviously, an application in the NFL draft world of knowing who's going to be worst, etc. Now, I like doing this for two reasons. One, I always have someone's team too low, number of teams too low. Heck, sometimes the team makes the playoffs, and I don't have them going to the Super Bowl, I get bashed. So I love the haters coming out and hating on me, which please do. You can tweet me at Shane P. Hallam or at Draft TV, and you can feel free to make fun of me and make fun of my picks. Now, before I get started, the second thing and the second reason why I love this is just because it's fun to follow and kind of root for teams that you pick to do really well, but maybe they didn't do well last year or people don't have them doing well. I like tossing a few surprises. Usually I'm wrong, so you can take what you want from that. Secondly, I've done pretty well at assessing the really good teams, which I guess isn't hard to do. But a couple years ago when the Packers won the Super Bowl over the Steelers, I had actually gone to Vegas that summer. I bet on them. It was the second year in a row that I had gotten the Super Bowl team right. I'd picked the Saints the year before. Not a lot of people picked them. The past couple years, I haven't done as well. I've done well for the regular season. Last year, I picked the Texans to win it all. Looked very, very good, and then kind of fell apart there in the playoffs. So I feel like it might happen again, but that's neither here nor there. I do have two rules that I abide by with these. First thing is, one, I have to at least change 5 of the playoff teams. And usually it's 6. Usually 6 teams change. And I tried really hard to get 6. I couldn't do it. I got 5, and some of them are kind of off the wall. So if your team made the playoffs last year and didn't this year, don't get super upset at me, because I was trying to change out teams. And there's a couple surprise teams I left out that probably are going to make the playoffs. So that always happens. Secondly, I have to move one team from 4th place from last year to 1st place this year. It happens almost every season. I believe it's like an 80% clip that happens. And the turnover from at least 5 teams happens about 90% of the time. So I always make that prediction. Last year I predicted the Chiefs. Whoops. They went for the number 1 overall pick. They went to still being the worst team. So this year it was really tough because I don't like a lot of the 4th place teams from last year, and I like a lot of the teams that did well last year, so it was very difficult. The last thing I want to say before I get into it is my numbers probably don't add up. I try to add up at least the number of wins to be across the board. I don't go through every single game and go win-loss, because usually what happens is all the good teams have 13 wins, all the bad teams have 3 wins. That's not how it happens. Teams lose. I don't do that. I look at the schedules. I like to see, the divisions. I like to see what other divisions they're playing, things like that. But I don't go through and go win-loss. So I think like the NFC probably has more wins than the AFC and all this thing should. So if you want to add up my numbers and make fun of me for that, feel free. But I'm telling you right off the top, it's not right. So we're going to start with the AFC. I'm going to start with the AFC East. I still have the New England Patriots winning that division, and if you see me looking down, that's where I wrote my predictions. I have them going 11-5, so kind of taking a step back, maybe not having as dominant of a regular season, because I could see them losing a couple games, maybe even a couple division games, maybe a surprise game here and there. Second, I have the Miami Dolphins. I'm a buyer in the Dolphins. Might be a year off on this. I think it could be 2014 where they're really good, but 9-7 for the Dolphins. Buffalo Bills, I have it 6-10. And kind of the Dolphins and Bills, I see with similar trajectories. I think the Bills could be a year behind the Dolphins because I really like Ryan Tannehill. It's on Mike Wallace, who I don't think will do as well as people think, but as being a deep threat, I think he's going to take a lot of pressure off the run game. I think Lamar Miller's going to do very well. I think Dustin Keller will do well. I think Brian Hartline will do well. I think see Ryan Tannehill emerge. I think they can win 9 games. Difficult schedule for this whole division. Very difficult schedule. That's the only thing that holds me back from Dolphins. I think the Bills are kind of the Dolphins of last year, where you have E.J. Manuel. I believe he's going to start. I think he should because you invested a first-round pick in him. But I think C.J. Spiller can do well. You could see some players do well for the offense. But you know what? The difference to me with these two teams is the defenses. I think the Dolphins have a great young defense. They've invested a lot in that defense. Brent Grimes, Cameron Wake is one of the most underrated players in the league. I think the Bills still have a year to keep building that defense up. I still don't love the linebackers for the Bills, and they could take some time as Mario Williams get back to form. I think Manuel actually surprises some people, plays pretty well, my Rookie of the Year pick, but I don't think they make the playoffs. And then I have the Jets coming in third, and it's not that I hate the Jets. It's just that I think they don't have the weapons on offense to really be efficient. I have them at 3-13. They could do better. I think they could pull off a couple games with some good defensive play. The defensive line is great, and I like Geno Smith a lot too. But I just don't think they have the weapons there outside of Santonio Holmes. Can Jeff Cumberland emerge? Is Jeremy Curley going to be that consistent threat? So the Jets could do a little better than that, but I do think they're going to be at the bottom. So Patriots, Dolphins, Bills, and Jets. AFC North, my predictions for them. This was difficult too, and I'm kind of going outside the box, so my hometown Pittsburghers are not going to be happy with me. But I have the Cincinnati Bengals winning the division at 10-6. I really like the Bengals defense. I think it's a young, energetic, big-time defense. I love A.J. Green. I like Giovanni Bernard. I thought that was a really good pick. I think he's going to play a lot. I love Tyler Eifert. I think this is a really good team other than the quarterback position and Andy Dalton. And if they had a better quarterback, if they had a Luka Griffin, one of those type of young quarterbacks, I would be putting them at 12, 13, 14 wins. But 10-6 team, I think they dropped some games they shouldn't, some close games, but still win this division. I have the Ravens at 9-7. Ravens really tough for me to peg, and it's a team where I think a lot of people are going to say, oh, the Ravens lost so much on defense. They lost all these veteran players. I don't think so. I think the signing of Elmas Dumerville negates a lot of that. I think they still have a pretty good secondary. I think this defense is going to be okay. I worry about the offense a little bit, and I like the running game a lot. I love Ray Rice and love Bernard Pierce. I'm scared of the center position. That's a position that I think the inexperience could hurt them. The receiver position, I think if Torrey Smith gets double-teamed and then you could take Dennis Pitta out of the game, I think Joe Flacco is going to struggle at finding other people to throw to. Obviously, Ray Rice will get his catches, but I think Ed Dixon might not quite be ready. Is there going to be a young receiver emerge? Tandon Doss, Tommy Streeter, one of those players? I'm not sure. So I think they do well. 9-7 is pretty darn good in the NFL. I have the Cleveland Browns at third. They're kind of one of my surprise teams. I have winning more games than people expect. I like this new coaching staff. I have them going 8-8. Which is a pretty big jump. I think they're going to be maybe one of these surprise teams that jumps out of the gate. Remember, this is a division that has a fairly easy schedule. They have some easier games on their schedule. And the Browns, being in fourth last year in the division, get some easy games compared to the other three teams. So I think the Browns are actually going to do pretty well. I think Whedon takes a step forward. Maybe doesn't show franchise quarterback caliber. I think they could still look for an upgrade. But I think Trent Richardson, I think some of the receivers emerge. Josh Gordon only has a 2-game suspension. And I really like this defense. I like the transition to 3-4. I think Jordan Cameron on offense comes through for them. I like the Browns. I have the Steelers at 6-10. You're not going to see a lot of people. I kind of think they're more of an 8-8 team by their makeup. But I think Ben Roethlisberger is going to get hurt for a couple games again. I don't think they have a backup quarterback this year that can sustain. I don't think the defense necessarily can sustain. If that happens, that's my big worry with them. And add on top of that, without Mike Wallace, I think they're losing something. If Heath Miller doesn't come back from that injury, they have some tough games in there. It's an easier schedule, so they should be able to at least get 7-9. But I had them 7-9, kind of took a game off them to get the numbers right. So pretty close. So sorry, Steelers, I don't have you in the playoffs this year again. AFC South is another division I kind of turned on its head a little bit, actually. It ended up pretty close, but I have the Colts winning the division, 10-6. I like the Colts. They made a ton of free agent signings. I like the coaching staff. I love Andrew Luck. I think the offensive line is going to be better. I think Ahmad Bradshaw is going to help. I think the Colts are going to win a lot of games this year. Houston Texans, I have at 8-8. Probably underwhelming for Texans fans. Actually, I'm narrowly missing the playoffs. And I still like the Texans a lot. I think DeAndre Hopkins has a great year. I think Matt Schaub can get it done. I think his coaching staff is okay. I wonder if the defense that was kind of inconsistent last year started off slow. If that happens again, can they sustain that? So Andre Johnson lost something. How's that run game going? 8-8 does seem low because I think this is a 10-win team by its makeup. But just to make the numbers work, I kind of have them dropping off, and to then make my playoff teams work, I have them falling out of the playoffs. I have Tennessee Titans at 7-9. Tennessee's a team I don't know how to pick. I like Jake Locker coming out of college. I didn't see the development last year to feel good about him this year. But I like the rest of the team. I think the offensive line's much better. I think Chris Johnson will do well. I like the receivers. I think their defense is underrated. So Does Jake Locker lose them games? If not, could they be a playoff team? They could be a playoff team. I had them actually over the Texans or tied with the Texans. Texans are a better team for the whole way. So I'd go 7-9, Tennessee, third place. And then I have Jacksonville, 2-14. It might be a better team than that because I like Cecil Shorts. I like Justin Blackmon if he comes back from the suspension. Maurice Jones-Drew comes back. That could really help them. The defense has some nice young pieces on it. But I feel like there's going to be a lot of points scored on them, especially in this division. I'm going to take Jacksonville for one of the worst records in the NFL. Final division in the AFC West, the Denver Broncos. Despite the suspension of Von Miller, I have them going 13-3. And I think those 3 losses could come pretty early in the season. I think they can make a late run similar to last year and really get into the playoffs and see what they could do. Look, getting Wes Welker, Peyton Manning, you have a good offensive line, you add it to the run game, this defense should still be very, very good. You have to feel good about the Broncos' chances to possibly have home field advantage. I have the Chiefs at number 2. I'm trying it again, picking the Chiefs, 9-7. I don't like Alex Smith. But I think Andy Reid can do some good things with Alex Smith and this team. Now, they're still lacking some pieces here. They don't have that number 2 receiver. Who is Alex Smith going to throw to? I think Travis Kelce needs to come on well. But I think they're going to use Jamal Charles in the pass game a lot. Dwayne Bowe's going to have a huge year. I think his defense is very underrated. Dontari Poe is going to take a step forward, stopping the run. I think this is a team in an easier division that's going to do very, very well. I have the Chiefs at 9-7. I have the Raiders and the Chargers tied at 4-12. I don't like either of them. Both of them, Chargers on paper, better than a 4-12 team. I mean, Chargers could make the playoffs if all goes well. Or they could have the first pick in the draft if there's injuries at a position or things don't go well. I like this new coaching staff. I like Mike McCoy a lot. So the Chargers I struggle with a lot, but I think their defense outplayed themselves a little bit last year. I think the offense is pretty bad. I don't think they have the pass catchers to sustain. If Ryan Matthews gets hurt again, can Danny Woodhead shoulder that load? I think there's a lot of question marks, but they are in a division where they can get wins against the Chiefs, against the Raiders. And the Raiders, definitely in rebuilding mode. I don't like Matt Flynn. I'd be much happier with Tyler Wilson or even Terrell Pryor getting a start there for Oakland. So I don't like that. Will McFadden stand his ground or will he get hurt again? They lost Darius Hayward-Bay. Do they have the receivers? Do they have the defense? Defense is really bad there. I'm not a big Raiders fan. So let's go over the playoffs for, I'll say that. I'm going to do the NFC and we'll do the playoffs. But here's the playoff teams, I'll tell you that. The Broncos getting number 1 overall seed, the first round bye. The Patriots getting number 2 seed and getting a bye. I have the Bengals with the number 3 seed, the Colts with the number 4 seed. So those are the division winners. And then I have the Dolphins coming in as a wild card and the Chiefs coming in as a wild card. So the Texans out, it hurt me to do that, but Ravens out, hurt me to do that. But it's kind of Ravens, Dolphins, Chiefs tied at 9-7. I put in the teams that weren't in there before because of that turnover that happens in the NFL every year. So we'll come back to that. NFC. The NFC East. Here we go. NFC East. This is the hardest division to predict. Absolutely. Because I like all 4 of these teams. I mean, I think Chip Kelly, if he comes in, he's successful. The Eagles could be good. I think the Giants could be good. I think the Cowboys have a lot of good talent on offense. I think the Redskins, we saw what happened last year with the Redskins. They went from 4th to 1st. They were the team that did it. But I think people are overlooking the Giants. I think the people are overlooking the Giants a lot. I have a tie at the top, and I'm going to give the Eagles the tiebreaker nod. I have the Eagles winning the division at 10-6. Got to have a team from 4th to 1st. And I couldn't pick one. The Eagles were it. Look, if everything goes well, if Nick Foles plays well, the Eagles have the talent to be atop of this division. Defensively, they had a lot of key under-the-radar free agent signings. Bradley Fletcher's a really good player people don't know about. They have some good young players. I thought they had a really good draft. So I have them at 10-6. I have the Giants also at 10-6. I think this could go either way. I think the Giants... Remember, they went 9-7 last year, and they kind of fell down during the stretch. They still have Eli Manning. They still have Tom Coughlin. I think David Wilson emerges. I think Ruben Randall comes out and does well. I think the defense still not great, gives up some games, and that's why I have them with the second spot in this division. I have the Cowboys at 9-7. I do like the Cowboys. I'm a Tony Romo, I don't say lover, but I back him. I don't think he's the problem. I think Des Bryant, Jason Witten, I think the run game helps a lot. I still don't think his defense, though, is good enough to win this division. I think that's going to be the big problem. They don't have the defensive linemen to do it, especially interior. I think they lacked the players they took in the draft, especially in free agency, building to this different defense. And the Redskins at 6-10. Man, it was tough for me to put them that low. I think they're a much better team than 6-10. It looks like Griffin's going to be back and healthy for the season, and if that happens, he's an X factor. But I don't like they didn't get him weapons. A lot of his weapons are injury prone. Probably some of his top guys are injury prone. Pierre Garçon, Fred Davis, Jordan Reed. That scares me a little bit. And this defense, I don't think the secondary is going to be fixed. So that's why I have them down a little bit. NFC North, it was tough for me to kind of change the NFC North. But I definitely don't like the Vikings as much in this. I have the Packers at the top, 13-3. Such a well-coached team. They still have Aaron Rodgers. I think the defense will improve. I think the run game will help them balance things out. They may not score as many points this year, but I think they win games better this year at 13-3. Let's see. I have the Bears at 10-6. I believe that's correct. I have the Bears at 10-6. Wow. The Bears, I like Mark Trestman. I'm interested to see how he does as a coach, because I think he can really help Jay Cutler. I think Alshon Jeffrey can emerge. Martellus Bennett, I thought, was a very good signing. Defense is my big issue with the Bears. How good is that defense going to be? Because there's been a lot of changes. But you still have Peanut Tillman. You still have a fair pass rush with Julius Peppers. I think the Bears are going to be a very intriguing team. I think they can win more than people think. I have the Lions at 8-8. I think the Lions have a really good team on paper. I think their defense has some talent, has some holes. I think Reggie Bush was an amazing signing for them. If Ryan Broyles gets healthy and could be a solid number 2 receiver, I think this could be a pretty good team. I can't quite put them in the playoffs. I just couldn't do it. It's so much talent in the NFC. It's really tough for me to do. I have the Vikings at 5-11. I like Christian Ponder more than a lot of people, but he's not the answer. So I have them kind of falling off. I think Peterson doesn't have as good a year, obviously. You can't have that good of a year. Is Greg Jennings stay healthy? That could be an issue. How does this defense do? Because I think they're aging and still have a lot of holes. I'm not a big Vikings fan of that team, but Peterson can be that difference maker. That's the big thing. NFC South, lots of good teams in the NFC South. I have the Falcons still winning the division, kind of eking it out at 12-4. I really like the Falcons. Matt Ryan, love the signing of Steven Jackson. I think that's going to help tremendously this season. I think that defense, so they're going to have a turnover. They attack their need of cornerback. They still have some good players in that front seven. I think this could be a team that does really well this year. The Saints at 11-5. I think they're going to take a step forward. I think Sean Payton back. I think this is one of those teams that you can say didn't make the playoffs last year, probably going to make the playoffs this year. I think Mark Ingram comes into his own. I think the defense for the Saints improves with the change to the 3-4. Might be a little rocky to start, so that's why I have them on 11-5. 11-5. Tampa Bay Buccaneers 9-7. I like Josh Freeman. I think some undue criticism. And I bet a lot on the Bucs last year to cover spreads, and they did tremendously because they're usually underdogs and they win the game outright. This defense could be super duper changed from last year. One of the worst in the NFL. Could turn into one of the best if they stay healthy. If that secondary plays well, the defensive line can have a pass rush finally this year. And you have to like Doug Martin. You have to like Mike Williams and Vincent Jackson. It comes down to health. They don't have a lot of depth on their team. That's why I say 9-7. Maybe late injuries kind of push them out of the playoffs. Carolina, I want to like Carolina because I do like Cam Newton, but I have them at 4-12 because I don't like the running backs. I don't like the receivers. I don't like the offensive line. I don't really like the defense all that much. I mean, other than Cam Newton, I don't like a whole lot about the Carolina Panthers. Maybe Luke Kuechly as well and a couple of their defenders, but I don't like too much about Carolina. So I have them kind of bottom of the barrel. NFC West, Seattle Seahawks. I have winning the division 12-4. I just love Russell Wilson, what I saw from him last year. I mean, I was not a Russell Wilson fan pre-draft. I was wrong. And I like Percy Harvin, and I think this offense is going to be great. I think they have a lot of depth. I think their offensive line is heavily underrated. I think their defense is very underrated, other than Bruce Irvin, who I still don't like. But I think they made some nice signings for some role players. I think their secondary is still very good, very physical. This could be a really good team. I I have San Francisco at 10-6, which is probably a little bit under what a lot of 49ers fans want. And I think that Michael Crabtree injury is huge. I really do. He's had a lot of foot problems. I think Colin Kaepernick, I want to see more out of him. You know, he didn't play the whole season. I'm still a little weary of Colin Kaepernick. Is he going to be that successful all the time? But they made it to the Super Bowl. They're a really good team. They have great depth at running back. They obviously still have some receivers that could emerge there. Anquan Bolden's going to be a big help. And, you know, this defense is going to be good. So 10-6 is not bad, but I have a feeling that San Francisco, their secondary might not be as good as we think with Nnamdi Asomugha and Eric Wright and all these new players coming in, Deshaun Goldson leaving. How does that change? Is Eric Reed going to be able to fill in? I think the secondary might not be as good as we think, so I don't know if they're going to be this 13-14 win team. I have the Rams at 5-11. I don't like the Rams a whole lot. I just don't like Sam Bradford all that much. I think they have some nice weapons. I think there's a good plan in place. I wonder if the running game gets going. Is Darrell Richardson really the guy? This offensive line I don't think is going to be as good as people think with Jake Long. And then the defense I do like for the Rams a lot. I think they have a great young defense. I think that's very underrated, and they've added a lot of pieces. So I think that might give them some wins. 5-11 might be a little bit short. If I like the offense more, I think I'd take them. Cardinals 4-12. I like the Cardinals a lot more than a 4-12 team. I really do. And it wouldn't even surprise me if this is a team that like last year, gets on a little bit of a winning streak that people start buying into. Because Carson Palmer's a big upgraded quarterback. The offensive line should be improved. Still not very good. Still one of the worst. I don't think the running game's going to do very well either. So I think that's going to hurt their upside a bit. But the defense is very, very good and probably one of the more underrated defenses in the NFL. They have a great front seven. If Darrell Washington comes back and everything's fine there, obviously I think the secondary is going to be improved. But it's tough for me to find those wins. And they're probably more of a 6-10, 7-9 team. Same with the Rams. It's just a really good division, and that's going to be difficult. So playoff teams for the NFC. Packers with the number 1 overall seed. Seahawks with the number 2 seed. The Falcons with the number 3 seed, the Eagles with number 4. Wild card teams, I had to leave some teams out that I think deserving. I had a lot of 10-6 teams. Giants were 10-6. The Saints were 10-6. The 49ers were 10-6. The Bears were 10-6. So I ended up going with the Giants and the Saints winning the tiebreakers. Actually, I have the Saints as the higher seed. Giants next in line. Yeah, the Saints at 11-5, so they get that 5 seed. Giants get the 6 seed. So sorry, 49ers fans, you can come hate me. Here's my playoff predictions. We'll come to that next. Playoff predictions. So AFC, I have the Chiefs at the Bengals. I actually have the Chiefs pulling the upset there because I don't trust Andy Dalton. I like Andy Reid. Dolphins at the Colts. I have the Colts winning that one pretty handily. So that leaves me with the Colts at the Patriots. I actually have the Colts pulling that upset. I really like the Colts this year. I think they're going to be a complete team. So I have them going to the AFC title game. Chiefs at the Broncos. I have the Broncos winning that one in division. Colts at Broncos. I have the Broncos winning it. I know it's Peyton Manning, but I feel like they're the best team in the AFC. If they were in the NFC, I don't think I'd have them going to the Super Bowl, but I do here. NFC. Giants at the Falcons. I have the Falcons winning that one. I think it'd be a good game. I think they're two good teams. The Saints at the Eagles. I think the Saints would win that game. I have them with a better record than the Eagles, so I think they would win that game as well. The Saints at the Packers. Talk about a good game. I think it could be the Saints. I like Sean Payton. I like the Saints' change in defense. If that works, I think the Saints could go to the NFC title game. Falcons at the Seahawks. Are the Falcons pulling that upset? I do like the Falcons' additions this year. I think the subtractions won't hurt as much as people think. Saints and Falcons. I have the Falcons winning that game. Falcons-Broncos Super Bowl. My Super Bowl prediction is for the Atlanta Falcons to win the Super Bowl. Matt Ryan against Peyton Manning in the Super Bowl, doing what Peyton Manning did in his career, really struggling in the playoffs, and finally having a team that was with Steven Jackson, with Julio Jones, with Roddy White, with Tony Gonzalez won last year. I think a lot of the Falcons are going to be motivated by Tony Gonzalez, similar to the Steelers, which Jerome Bettis a couple years back. I think the Falcons are going to win the Super Bowl. There's my predictions. Feel free to bash them, everyone who is not an Atlanta Falcons fan. And then the Falcons fans will bash me because they didn't get a bye in the playoffs. So all 32 teams, you can come at me on Twitter. That's perfectly fine. those are my predictions. It's on file. It's on record. Went about 25 minutes, so thank you guys very much. Thanks for sticking with me. DraftTV.com for NFL Draft. DraftTV.com/fantasy for your fantasy football information, and I'll see everyone later.